And is Professor set already? Yeah, greetings everybody. We are once again here today in the African Business Month, and we are welcoming you wherever you might be from across the continent and beyond. And with me is our comrade, our sister, and one of our mentors, uh, Sister Shannon, and she's my co-host today. Yeah, Sister Shannon, please.
Everyone, things to everyone all over the world. I am Shannon Gorses from Namibia. I hope can you hear me?
Okay. Uh, as you know, by the way, I don't even introduce myself in this platform anymore because I think we've been here for quite a number of time now. Anyways, once again, I am your comrade Ibrahim Sise from the Republic of the Gambia, and also known as an African Mashariki. Mimi nimetoka Kenya bana. We are once again coming up with our African Business Month. And as you know, African Business Month this year's theme is revolutionizing how we do business in Africa. And with us today is our two special guests who are having profound impact on the continent and also uh, known by everybody for their passion for the continent and also the speciality they have in this particular area. Special guest who is our comrade, my fellow countryman Usman Toure, and also we have in with us today Professor Mama. So please, Usman, we'll be having Usman with us first, then we'll be moving with Professor. So Usman can talk to the people.
Thank you so much for having me. I am really glad to be here with you. Yes, as you said, of the Gambia, a school which I use as an organization, but also look into the opportunities in the digital space. So aside this, we also do a lot of engagement across the continent from different African countries. I'm a part of many boards internationally on organizations that deals specifically on the betterment of Africa, and one of those is the Pan-African World Heritage, which is headquartered in Ghana, and as well as the World Council of Conference of Churches, which is also headquartered in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So these are two organizations that I work with, and as well as the Africa Private Sector Summit, where we do and promote engagement, especially in the private sector, and how young African can own the destiny of the continent, but by equally taking charge, especially in the business world. There is an advocacy in line with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is a milestone in our regional integration, and a lot more on education and other spaces. Thank you so much.
We can only pray for your steadfastness and also pray to have longevity of your state with us here. And we also pray for your protection equally. And, with time, success shall come. Usman, so when we talk about the African Business Month, uh, would like you to give us your overview of this particular theme, and what do you think, especially the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, and also how do we connect these things to the view, because we do not want to take the ownership of these ideas as if we have the monopoly of it, not to connect it to the people who actually pioneered the idea of us doing business together and us having our financial political independence. I mean, from the founding fathers of the Pan-African scholars, the likes of Osagyefo, Nkrumah, and the likes of Nyerere. And if I may go out beyond the continent, the likes of, the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois. So how do you give this to us in 2020, especially November today?
Yeah, thank you so much for that brilliant question. And I have to commit all of you for having designed a team of this nature, revolutionizing, doing business in Africa. First, we have to admit that there are wrongs in doing business in Africa. And these wrongs are as a result of, politics sometimes, the infrastructure, but equally for the young people to realize that there is a space for them. Now, the absence of the structures, the absence of the fundamental policies, the absence of, people knowing the challenge and understanding what is there for them have really undermined doing business across the African continent. Now, when we say this, sometimes as youth, what we do is we want to challenge the status quo. And that's where perhaps a team like what we are discussing today is inspired. Revolutionizing doing business. When we look at the African continent today, yes, businesses happen. Everybody look at Africa as a continent of wealth, be it the resources, be it financially, be it other aspects. But once we look into it, we see the potentials, we see business opportunities, and we see how individuals outside of this continent have able to use that opportunity to build wealth for themselves. Now, that way of channeling businesses outside of the continent have really affected business in Africa. Now, moving further, it gives us another context, and that is the way in which our businesses and everything in the continent is designed. It is more of an extract opportunity in a sense that when we look at things around the continent, we realize that it is very easy for individuals to come into Africa, engage in different forms of business, but as a form of exporting stuff outside the continent. And when we even look into the African ports in general, you look at logistics, you come to realize that almost everything can easily leave the continent, but there is no developmental trade from within. African finds it very difficult to do trade with other African countries. For instance, we're just here in the Gambia, wanting to ship a container to, let's say, Sierra Leone, to Ghana, to Nigeria. Sometimes we'll have to take 3 months because that ship has to go through the sea, maybe to a port in Europe, to another port in Asia before it comes down to Africa again. So these meaning that our trade, our development, the way we do business is more of an extract than developmental. We find it very easy to send things away from the continent and not having the possibilities of doing business from within. Now, um, going back to the roots on individuals who have really questioned the status quo, from the Marcus Messiah Garvey advocating for the African people to understand that there has to be this self-upliftment and self-reliance. The African, the black individual being able to understand that the wealth from within them, they need to add value to it, but at the same time, take charge of their own destiny by being in charge of their development, their businesses, their economic, their health, their education, And through that way, we can have a sustainable livelihood. Now, from him going to the likes of Fanon, the likes of Walter Rodney, we've seen, him depicting how Europe underdeveloped Africa. Though looking at it from a historical angle, but even on the financial sector, highlighting the importance of integration within Africa and how all the forces have tried to make sure that this is not a possibility. Until of recent, we've seen some African countries that have come together to champion the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And this is a milestone in regional integration in Africa. And if we get this through, it means this is going to be the second biggest market in the world outside of the World Trade Organization. Now, what is there for business? What is there for young people? Though we still have a lot of things that needs to be integrated in this particular when we look at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, there has to be the promotion of a single currency because we still use foreign currency to trade within Africa, which still points at how capital flights occur. Again, the infrastructural developments are not yet there to ease the way of doing business for a young Gambian wanting to do business with people in Rwanda, with people in Kenya, with people in South Africa. Those channels are not yet there. And three, the political will. There are still governments who uses, politics. That open space is not yet there for young people to be easily integrated from one African country to another. Young entrepreneurs in Sudan finds it very difficult to move to their neighboring countries. You look at other entrepreneurs in Sierra Leone finds it very difficult to even do business in Benin or do business in other African countries. So the problem when it comes to the political will, the problem when it comes to the real structures, the problem when it comes to the young individuals themselves understanding that there is a space here. So all these things makes it very difficult. But saying this doesn't mean that okay, we just observe that yes, this is difficult and we leave it at that. No, we have to be the lead. And here's one thing: if the young people of this continent, the business developers of this continent didn't take charge of the destiny of this continent, we will face something worse than colonialism. Because with the revolution in tech, modern systems, it means Africa has to go 100 times faster than any other society in order to catch up and have equal space like any other government or have equal influence like any other power around the world. Now, when we young people are able to meet and interact and question these very things, it means solution has to be developed. But how do we see those solutions? First, it has to be that genuinity in ourselves and wanting to make sure that our businesses is not led by profit maximization, but the impact that we are doing. As a young entrepreneur in the Gambia, what should be my objective? How well do I work in terms of giving all the young Africans space to realize that their businesses can be scaled up, their entrepreneurial journey can be fastened, their entrepreneurial journey can maybe be supported in one way or the other. It might not always be finances, but sometimes maybe what is required is the experience that they need to tap from other young African developers, entrepreneurs, and the list goes on. So, if we really want to have a shift in the way we do business, it will be important for us to explore the dynamics today. How do we make sure that the young entrepreneurs don't just develop business ideas because they want to go or they want to be called CEOs, they want to be called an entrepreneur? It's not about the title, it's about the impact you're doing. It's about how well you can scale and how important your business means to others. And how do we equally make sure that there is this collaboration? It has to be beyond competition. Yes, it's good to fix standard and people compete to some extent, But what should be our motive? How do we make sure that we do business, we create spaces for one another? How do we make sure that we're in business because we want to create opportunities? Creating jobs today in Africa is no longer a government's work. It's the entrepreneurial world that young people have championed. How do we make sure that we build this love, we build that unity among ourselves as young people? Just like we are able to have this conversation virtually. Maybe 5, 6 years ago, this used to be very difficult. But today we have a digital space that we need to tap in. Whether we champion the fourth industrial revolution or not, we can harness the dividends because technology is a free space for everyone. So when we do business with these mindsets, when we do business with the belief of taking charge of what we own, when we open up as a society, especially to our brothers and sisters who have traveled all over the world, be it Africans, second African generation in the diaspora, be it diasporians who have connections to the motherland and believe that they can come with skills, with knowledge, with investments to impact. These things needs to be built and spaces have to be granted. Final note will be investment. Today, when we look at startups across the world, 80% of startups across the world failed down the line. And 40% of them failed because of what? The lack of finance. How many young people today across the continent will have a brilliant business mind, brilliant business idea, develop it with all that it needs, but then investment is not coming? That's where governments have a role, and they're not playing that. That's where the African private sector is supposed to take the lead. Last year alone, billions of dollars were spent in buying young startups in Nigeria. By who? American entrepreneurs, not Africans. So that's where we have the problem, the fear to invest in these youths. Not wanting to give them a space, but not wanting to invest is what has been tying us and making business difficult in the continent. But if we are ready to explore all this, therefore we can build a sustainable future for Africa, for Africans, and for generations of this continent to come. Thank you. I hope I've answered the question.
Usman, thank you so much. When you're asking question to people that having more answer than the questions you have, what you have always, I can't from it. And there are points I would like to ask you from Usman, uh, because you actually live in the practicality of the Pan African dream of not being able to stop by the boundaries of the nation states within the continent. And I'm sure that you come across the stories of many young Africans who are actually from the Eastern Africa wanted to do business with the Western African youths. Like myself here, we try to establish this business partnerships between Gambia and Kenya, between Gambia and Nigeria. But we face things like, how do I send Gambian dollars to somebody who is receiving money in Kenyan shilling in Kenya? Or who is receiving naira and I'm sending dollars and I'm supposed to send us to be converted to dollar, then to be sent to naira. How many of these stories do you come across and you think a possible solution to those things?
Yeah,
If
thank you so much. You see,
policy
and
makers
that's what
actually might come across this video.
Uh, I mean, thank you so much. You see, and that's why I was even stressing on the need for a single currency in order to have a successful Africa continental free trade area. Now, when you look at the financial transactions across Africa, this continent is losing billions of dollars every year because the people are transacting in foreign currencies like the dollar, the euro, and this goes on. Most of the current pricing that we are all crying for is nothing because of the devaluation of our currency. and as well as the lead in doing business using the dollar or the euros. Now, the reason why they scale it because we are buying almost everything from abroad and it requires the dollar. It becomes so scarce that it will have an influence over our own local currencies. Now, not just this. You see, recently I have been having serious difficulties when it comes to some of these things because there are a series of projects that we are doing in other African countries, and sometimes it can be you trying to support an investment somewhere or maybe a startup somewhere, and you realize that they have all these difficulties from within. Let's say a young Gambian is selling a product to someone in Nairobi. You see, you cannot send them your dollars. What you end up doing is either you go to Nairobi with dollars or you go to the bureau, buy dollar, convert dollar again, send dollar, and when it gets there, they receive in Kenyan cedis, or maybe for few countries will receive in dollars as well. Now, what does this tells us at the end of the day? Now, one, it is not of pride. I do not feel pride to be seen around with the dollar doing business with it. Now, number two, it devalues our currencies on a daily basis. Number three, it affects the country's import. And that is why every African country is today crying because of the dollar. On a country like the Gambia, you wake up every day, there is point something increment that points to the economy. And you know what is happening with this? There's a serious cash flow, like capital flights that is happening away from this country, building other economies out there because of the transactions only, not to explore other avenues where we equally get from. So yes, it is a serious thing. And moving away from this is only one solution. We have to own our own currency. We have to be able to do business using our currency. And if we cannot do that, we will continue to pay for the development of other nations. There's a price attached, and they can still regulate everything from the Gambia, from Africa, and not only that, they determine the prices of everything, and they have a say because it's their currency that is used. So that guarantee is all that we are lacking. And I believe that, for a genuine Africa continental free trade, where young people do not just interact for discussion, but interact for business purpose, there has to be a medium of exchange solely owned by Africa and controlled by Africa.
And Usman, if I hear you well, there's a point you mentioned, and which I think one of the writers of the post-independent days Africa talked about, which is the jealousy, the tendency for jealousy among the young Africans, to say instead of us promoting and supporting one person to move forward, and then all of us can be joining him into that leadership, then we us among ourselves compete in one another, and how that might affect our unity, and also how do we do business together, because
Yeah,
sometimes you even not to talk about, I like to talk about this always. uh, Always there's a point to divide us in Africa, and if we want to keep dividing ourselves, for instance, whenever we talked about religion, we might all be one Muslims or Christians, and when we move forward to another level, we'll realize we are all from the same religion, but we're not from the same tribe. And when the tribe is no longer a problem, the region becomes a problem. When region is not even a problem, now the clan or within this, like, so how do you think that actually affected between young Africans being able to do business together? Because I believe
yeah,
we already got our political one, but what we're lacking behind is the economic freedom that we're looking for.
yeah. Thank you so much. You see, first people have to be able to come together. They have to be able to unite it in order to do business. Yes, it is very instrumental to have a product to exchange when there is the need from one person to another. It can include, or it can fasten or maybe support integration and all that. Now, going back to look into the entire continent in general, we'll come to realize that yes, it is very difficult to do business in other spaces. Not very long ago, I was in a meeting in Cameroon, and I had views from different African that were represented there. Some of the comments make me even wonder, like, is this really true about us? That sometimes you can see that someone is ready to end the life of another African just because of something that has to do with tribe, something that has to do with culture, something that has to do with religion, something that has to do with a political party. Now, this endangers livelihood, it endangers everything. And if that happens, businesses don't survive. So, I think moving ahead or away from this is first going back to the schools. There is the need for Africans to learn the value of loving and trusting a fellow. You see, Marcus Garvey once said something: every race deserves a home.
Mhm.
Every race deserves a home. And the home of an African is Africa. Now, the reason why a home is needed, the reason why people can live in one home and survive, is not because they don't have differences, but it's because they have something bigger that unites them in that. You see, if I look at you, I don't see tribe, I don't see your religion. To be honest, I don't even know. But I know you are an African fellow. And I know that by trusting, by giving you space, by wanting to do business with you, by wanting to interact with you, by wanting to listen to you, there is something that you can add to my existence. This is what young Africans need to understand, that the fellow Kenyan is not a threat to the Gambian, that the Nigerian is not a threat to the Sierra Leonean, but in fact, it is a strength that once honest, it's gonna build us better. And that is why all of us have to sometimes work together in platforms like this, whether it's online engagement, whether it's in person engagement, to decolonize this mentality. That was the idea of the colonizer. The divide and rule policy worked because they make Africans losing trust to one another. Now, shifting from this narrative have to mean us going back to the roots. What do we teach our kids when we speak with them? Our children, our sons and daughters, how do they look at their fellows in school? How do they look at their fellows in the society? This go a long way is in influencing who they trust and who they look at as a threat or who they want to work with to attain a sustainable future. So the school has a role to play, our media platforms has a role to play, but our governments have to lead this advocacy all through.
Okay.
So
Usman, if I may ask this last question before you go, as a young person and as a passionate, unapologetically young Pan African living, what you wish to do for the continent and not apologizing or even sugarcoating anything. Do you normally, because I experience I won't mention countries, but there are countries that are actually against the idea of the Pan Africanism because thinking that this was the idea of the founding fathers and this was, for instance, when we talk about the concept of Ubuntu, Ujamaa, or the Ujamaa concept of Nyerere, do you personally face difficulties moving across the continent? Because Wadamaya normally talks about what he faces. So do you equally face something
absolutely,
like that?
absolutely. I am telling you this for free. Take it. It's the most difficult thing to do, traveling across Africa. You're going to be discriminated. I've felt it. Sometimes I just hold it to me because I believe I have a work to do. And perhaps it shouldn't be me saying, oh my God, this is painful because of the amount or the number of people that have trust in us. But so many instances have been discriminated in airports, have been, I mean, like kind of a deported, I can say, from one airport to another. I face all these challenges, but I just leave them to myself. That yes, it's Usman. And sometimes I educate them that yes, what you did it because of you. And here is the right thing to do. Some of them will only understand later after they discover, oh, so this is a famous guy. Then they start to be nice. But because I don't want to show this, even with our airlines, sometimes they treat you anyhow. Sometimes you go on different immigrations. It's a sad reality that we all face. Sometimes they question you and you're seeing every other race passing. The white folks, the Chinese. I've been to airports where we will be stuck in one place and you see all the Chinese passing. You confront them and tell them, why is this happening? And they're like, no, you are the enemy of the country. I'm like, what's in your mind? Not even to kill, like any of us. So these are problems that we face. We go over, we see them everywhere. And sometimes I deliberately keep quiet. Some of them I just ignore until they will later on discover, oh, so this was this guy. And then some of them will even come back to apologize. Yes, this has happened. We are sorry about this. But one thing, when I'm doing what I'm doing, I do it because of the continent. And I make sure that I stick to what I stand and I work with people who genuinely believe this. I am not the person who writes proposal to anywhere and said, come and fund me on this. And I am not the person who sit down and wait for a government to do one or two things. I do it with the little capacity I have, and I'm thankful with that.
Okay. Usman, I can only say I don't know what more words do I need to tell you, because we're in this together, and you moving across the continent, so you already lived it. So, but what last word would you have for the people who are saying, because whatever you are saying, it's directly the legacy of the colonialism and the domination of the Africans in their own motherland. Uh, what word do you have for the people who just don't want you, people like you, to talk about colonialism? uh, they don't want you to talk about the neo-colonialism, even though Nkrumah said it's alive and well. And they want you to treat it as if it is a historical event, and it has no impact in the current life that we live in Africa. And what motivational word do you have for young Pan-Africans that are looking up to you, and the comrades that are looking up to you as a beacon of hope, and the fact that we shall continue fighting with the little capacity that we have? Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. You see, my final words will always be, we have a reason for taking this stand. Some of which internally, and we question ourselves, wanting to go higher, wanting to go, unapologetic with the things that we're doing on a daily basis. And we will never undermine that role. That's our integrity. For me, that's how I look at it. I wake up every day believing that Africa can be better and I have a role to play in it. And to anyone who this doesn't feel good or who doesn't settle with these things, to me it's just their own businesses. They're not gonna stop it. Because I know that not just myself, but there is a generation of Africans who are advocating from different parts of the continent today. In Chad, for the past few weeks, we've seen what is happening. We've seen a similar thing in the case of Senegal, and we'll continue to see from one African country to another. But the youths of this continent will really take up the role and we will deliver to the people of Africa. Yes, for the young people, let's keep believing, let's keep fighting, let's keep structuring, let's keep working together. Let's understand that love have to lead in this. And all of us, Africa, our generation and generations of Africans to come, can be victorious in this struggle. Thank you.
Usman, we are honored, we're humble and grateful to have you with us. We wishing you all the best in whatever dream that you have for the country. Again, I
Thank
said
you.
we pray for your protection. We prayed for
Thank you.
God to look after you wherever you might be. Well, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much. All the best for the
you.
rest of the program. I take a leave.
Thank you so much. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was from Usman Toure, and you know, this is the greatness of the Pan-Africanism ideology. As I always say, it's for people who might not understand. I always say, you don't have to ask me what Pan-Africanism is. Ask for people who led this independent struggle in your country. Those are the founding fathers of Pan-Africanism. And their entire goal was, and today the goal of the Pan-Africanism is to make sure that we have the liberty, you know, respect, and, you know, to break all the barriers from across the globe that actually stood against African progress and the persons of African origin. And this idea of African Business Month is, how do we revolutionize this? How do we do business beyond the corporate designs of the global institutions that kept, you know, looting from African people? And how do we have a Senegalese young person and a Gambian young person doing business not in a form of exploitation, but them doing it as a mutual respect and mutual benefit for all of them? And this is what we advocating for. And with me, my co-host is here, and I'll let the floor for Sister Shannon to, you know, be with you. Sister Shannon, please.
Hello, everyone. I hope you are able to
Yeah.
hear me. I'm experiencing a bit of technical difficulties, so
Yeah,
please bear with me. Am I audible?
yeah, I can get you out and clear.
This is the African Business Month, and our theme for today is revolutionizing how we do business in Africa and breaking the barriers. Our next speaker will be Professor Michael. I'll just like to welcome him. Okay, just how welcome him to the panel.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you,
Professor, are you
am I there on the panel? Yes. I'm backstage.
us?
Can you see me? Okay. You can see me. Can you hear me?
He
Hello?
will be speaking on a topic he is a research professor at the Tawana University of Technology, and the topic of discussion for him for today
Yeah, I think Shannon is having network issues. Hello, Prof.
Yes. How are you? How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear, Professor.
Okay,
We're
wonderful.
glad to have you
Because
with
I had,
us today. I hope you
yes,
can
thank you
hear
so
us
much.
loud and clear too.
I'm sorry I missed your lecture, Dr. Ibrahima, because
No,
I had a network issue. I don't know, but let me go quickly because of the network.
okay,
Let
Professor. The
me
floor is
let me
yours.
present my yes. Okay, I'll do that. Applying
Okay,
digital explosive technology to add value to resource-rich Africa to achieve fully sustainable and integrated development. It is what I gave as a title. Let me go through
okay,
it. I will give
okay,
you an inspiration. And Africa is the richest in natural resources. I want to also say one of the key challenges Africa faces is how to use internet governance, digital technology governance, how to improve the governance system, the leadership, the institutions, and the system, and how do we reimagine innovation Africa ever resource wealth poor Africa. Africa is naturally resource rich, but in terms of wealth, the wealth is not in the hands of Africa. It's in the hands of those that exploit Africa, both internally here in Africa and externally those that ally with those that internally exploits us, our own Africans. So resource wealth poor Africa never, reimagine innovation Africa ever. What are the challenges we can address and what paradigm shift is needed? And some concluding remarks I will do. We need to create not states in Africa, but African states, not universities in Africa, but African universities, not industries and businesses in Africa, but African industries and businesses, not NGOs and civil society in Africa, but African NGOs and civil society, not to create 54 nations, but to create one African United Nation by providing one African citizenship, one passport, and one currency. The tragedy of the world is that those who have imagination have but slight experience, and those who are experienced have feeble imaginations. Fools act on imagination without knowledge. Pedants act on knowledge without imagination. Time to value the ignored indigenous knowledge to well together from Africa. Imagination, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, experience to build and create experienced learners with knowledge and imagination, hybridity and synergy, meaning the indigenous, the knowledge universe that exists in Africa must also be valued in such a way that we also use the current digital technology to upgrade it and value it. Richest resource Africa. Africa is home to about 30% of the world's mineral reserves, 12% of the world's oil, and 8% of the world's natural gas reserves. This is what the United Nations said. Africa has diamonds, sugar, salt, gold, iron, cobalt, uranium, copper, bauxite, silver, petroleum, cocoa beans, tropical timber, tropical fruit, and oil reserves. What doesn't Africa have? Everything. The DRC Congo has resources estimated to 24 trillion. That's extraordinary. Resource rich Africa is resource wealth poor Africa. Why are we in this situation now? We need to get out of this. Can internet governance assist to change the rich resource that Africa is losing to also bring the richest wealth for Africa? Internet governance was defined by the World Summit at the Information Society as a development and application by governments, the private sector, civil society, in their respective roles of shared principles, norms, rules, decision making procedures, and programs that shape the evolution and use of the internet. Look at China. Digital independence from China is extraordinary. Is there any lesson that we Africans can also learn from China? China cherishes its indigenous knowledge and independence, having gone through colonialism like Africa. The Chinese search engine, Baidu, is bigger than Google. Instead of YouTube, there is Youku. Instead of eBay, there is Taobao. Instead of Facebook, there is Renren. Instead of Twitter, there is Weibo. There is Vuv, not Zoom. Instead of YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, China has invented China has invented its own its own alternative tools. Africa still mainly copies, borrows digital technology. I'm in a lecture now. Can I call you later? Thank you. Um, so Can Africa learn to influence and manage the digital governance? Give it, and can we also learn uh, from China? Like, how did they do it? You see, like, is there any way when you are able to control the digital explosive technology and manage it, then you are able to also be independent. Our problem in Africa is that we still also borrow all the Google, yeah, the Zoom, everything we do is also copied. Is this copying going to hurt us also to continue making us losers in our rich resources and not gainers to create wealth from our rich resources for Africa? And I think it's a serious issue. Internet governance deals with how much influence each sector of society should have on the development of the internet, such as to what extent the state should be able to censor it, and how to address issues on the internet, such as cyberbullying and criminal behavior, and how to address the external use of the internet to control Africa's resources. So Africa has rich resources. Africa has abundant resources, fossil fuels, hydropower, wind power, solar power, minerals. Africa is rich with natural resources, but poor in terms of the wealth that needs to be generated and developed and owned from that nat- poverty, wealth, um, natural resource rich, but wealth creation from that natural resource poor. So Africa must use digital algorithm to manage governance to retain its resources. Government by algorithm, also known as algorithmic regulation, regulation by algorithm, algorithmic governance, algocratic legal order, or legal algocracy is an alternative form of government or social ordering, where the usage of computer algorithms, especially of artificial intelligence, blockchain, is applied to regulations, law enforcement, and generally any aspect of every daily life, such as transportation or land registration or anything like that. So, how do we create this explosive technology digital algorithm to actually manage all the particular characteristics that our relationships that have not been always positive? How could we change them into that way and not really also be losers in this algorithmic governance system? So governance by algorithm, the term governance by algorithm appeared in academic literature as an alternative for algorithmic governance in 2003. A related term, algorithmic regulation, is defined as setting the standard, monitoring and modification of behavior by means of computational algorithms. Automation of judiciary is in its scope. So there's this very interesting thinking about how we can create the new technology, a digital technology algorithm that actually can help us to also do what's called e-governance. Government by algorithm raises new challenges that are not captured in the e-government literature and the practice of public administration. Some sources equate cyberocracy, which is a hypothetical form of government that rules by the effective use of information, with algorithmic governance. Although algorithms are not the only means of processing information, Nelox and Teresa Sampson argued that the combination of a human society, certain regulation algorithms, such as reputation-based scoring, forms a social machine. So machine learning, social machine, and some approach by which you use a technology to actually create a governance arrangement where you don't get cybercrime, where you actually create cyber justice, some rehabilitative justice, restorative justice for the injustices that Africa has been suffering from is what we need to do. The blockchains offer a novel way to enforce agreements and achieve cooperation and coordination. So very good to use blockchains. The main technical features of blockchains support transparency and traceability of records, information immutability and reliability, autonomous enforcement of agreements. As such, blockchains will affect traditional forms of governance, most notably contractual and relational governance, and may change the way to organize collaborations between individuals and between organizations. Blockchain governance relies on a set of protocols, code-based rules. As an original governance mode, it departs from an enforcement through the law, as in contractual governance, or through the value of future relationships, as in relational governance. New relationships in governance, new relationships in institution building, new relationships in education, all right? New relationships in the business sector are critically important. And I'll mention the business sector, how we can also change the in the African context, with our own values, how we can make it better, but how do we apply this new technology like blockchain that can offer reinforce agreements and achieve help us with cooperation, collaboration, and coordination? How do we bring these technical features, all right, to support us to make sure that all the information, all the agreements are well managed is a critical and important matter that we must never forget. The information technology governance primarily deals with connections between business focus and information technology management. The goal of clear governance is to assure that investment in internet information technology generates business value and mitigates the risks that are associated with international information technology projects. So ICT to address the challenge in Africa: quality service, quality leadership, quality institutions, quality systems. How could in Africa we get these qualities? Critical: the governance, the service, the leadership, the institutions, the management, the cooperation, the collaboration, the coordination, the reliability, all right? And have to be managed extremely well. And if we do that, then everything will go. Look at one example: Africa Solar Energy Reach, Africa Solar Energy Network. We founded an African Solar Energy Network in 2011. It's called ANSOL, is a voice of African renewable energy. We had even a United Nations General Assembly 77 on ANSOL, how to assist Africa to achieve sustainable development goals. ANSOL provides training on skills for renewable energy provision to make accessible to all in Africa, to make energy accessible to all of Africa. Not energy accessible, electricity accessible. Africa, with all its rich resources, should not have any place without electricity and without water and without sunshine. We have everything. God has given us everything, but we don't know how to manage it. We don't know how to agree, and when we disagree, learn how to re-agree. We have no, instead of despite the fact we have the philosophies that have that will save the world have been created in not in the West and everywhere in Africa, but we don't value our own philosophies. We don't know our own values, and we copy, we mimic, and we then make mistakes, and ultimately who benefits? Others, not us. Africans losers. So we have become like that. We need to change. Develop research activities by encouraging collaborations with African scientists. We need to do that more. The solar energy in Africa is very rich. The solar energy on the Sahara, if managed scientifically, is a huge resource. The study is done to demonstrate it can generate free electricity to Africa. This was the German professor did a research on it. I think I should give you the sources. Not only to Africa, even Europe. We can not only give electricity, free electricity from the solar energy, not only to Africa, but the whole of Europe can benefit also. And it can be free energy. But the solar energy capacity building is still not strong in Africa. We need not delay to use Africa's blessings with the sun by developing its natural resources into energy wealth. The energy wealth is what we need to create. Now, we need innovation Africa. Remove ourselves from conflict-ridden Africa, war-ridden Africa, dictatorship-ridden Africa, all right? Coup d'etat-ridden Africa, ethnic division Africa, dividing ourselves with language, religion, all right? Tribe. No, this is wrong. We should get out of that. Remove that and create the African future. The future of Africa should be innovation Africa. We need to embed a total innovation learning culture, the African one. We need to transform Africa through knowledge, learning, innovation, competence building. We need to establish a Pan-African innovation system by learning and building from the past inventions, innovation, and even in our indigenous knowledge. Use the rich values of Africa, Ubuntu and MAT, to use Africa-centered innovation knowledge, indigenous knowledge innovation without transgressing social and ecological health. We need to work on that, and we need digital technology to actually allow us to actually value and create and circulate and learn with each other all the things that are valuable to us that are created in Africa that we have excluded and ignored. We're forced to do that instead of valuing them, bringing them, encouraging us, and really motivating us and inspiring us to move on onwards and forwards to make a big difference in the world. So As you know, three challenges are now confronting Africa. The problem of unending poverty, inequality, and unemployment has not been replaced with additive and multiplicative well being for all the people. The world is going through demographic explosion, and climate change, with informal and agricultural economy remaining still largely where the majority of the people in Africa live. We are now also entering what's being described as surveillance capitalism, which is connected to the digital age of the fourth industrial revolution. Now, this is interesting. Is the digital age and the explosive digital technology going to be a help to us or a threat to us, a risk to us, a danger to us, or is it going to help us to assist? How come countries like the Chinese knew how to manage it? They have their own, not their own Google, they have Baidu. Why don't we in Africa create our own Africa Do? Like they have done everything. The entire technology, the digital technology, they have owned it and they have done independently and they are running it themselves. I just recently ran a conference on the China Africa Science Technology Innovation Collaboration, and the Chinese side, they were presenting in the language, the Chinese one, and they were also using their VUV, not the Zoom. So we had to find a way to actually coordinate it, and it took us a long time. You will not believe how much stress we had to actually manage it. I was just amazed, though. I learned a lot from what they have been doing. So the independence they express is incredible. Whatever you say, I mean, whatever mistake they may be making, whatever perspiration they went through, they have created some inspirational on this digital time, something like that. So how can we create transformative innovation that will make the livelihood and well-being of the people the priorities by making digital explosive technology to help rather than hurt Africa? That's quite important. So time to redo innovative innovation Africa. Integrating these concerns with innovation systems and development requires rethinking both the whole innovation system approach as well as the existing development economic theories that emerged after decolonization with aid, loans, debts, and foreign outward and inward investments. We should actually bring an African innovation system, an African development system, development economic system, and need to integrate them, use also this digital technology to help us, assist us to do it. Not remain on aid, loan, and debt when we have everything. All our resources are taken. A book was written called Africa Betrayed. Huge amount of resources are flowing out of Africa. More resources every year go out of Africa than what comes in. Over 70 billion every year goes out of Africa. All right. So 6 times more resources flow out of Africa than what comes in by aid or loan and debt. But we continue to pay with aid, loan, and debt more, so that more resources flow out of Africa than coming in. We're in a really difficult situation. There's a need to reconceptualize the reform both in the African context, innovation and development. So integrate African digital innovation with development. Integrating these concerns with innovation system and development digitally requires rethinking both the whole innovation system approach, not copy it, as well as existing development economic theories, not copy it, that emerged after decolonization with aid, loans, dates, and foreign outward investments. There's a need to reconceptualize, reform both the African innovation and development. Innovation has to be defined with novelty and usefulness. But how have novelty and usefulness been validated? They have been validated narrowly by commerce and market. The validation criteria for both novelty and usefulness has to be transformed. There should be an inclusion of well-being, service provision, environmental protection, humanitarian criteria above the current dominant validation by merely market commerce economics, including the current dominating e-commerce expansion. We need to do that. And development has to be redefined. Development should not be measured merely by economic growth. A country may have rapid economic growth, but not development that transforms, performs, and reforms the livelihood of the people. Development should also be reconceptualized beyond aid, loans, and debts. A country with huge debt faces the challenge to pay debt despite whatever level of economic development it can find itself in. Development should be anchored on how the well-being of people and nature are promoted to create where no citizen begs, where no one starves, and where no one is homeless, and all have opportunities to learn and work to make everyone live a decent life. So, a new synthesis to build innovative Africa. There's a need how to build new synergy between development and innovation. Economic gain to make profit is not sufficient. There must be social well-being gain and environmental protection gain. Synergize informal with formal economy in Africa. Indigenous with modern all businesses and so on. All knowledge and not merely prioritize the economic variable by excluding the social and environmental gains to undertake both innovation and development. So we need to have a new value. associational value, inclusive value, not excluding, not silos, not creating, like disciplines like minority, narrowing down, but more like that. We need to do that. So the development and innovation theories have evolved mainly dominated by economics field. There's a need to generate problem-based knowledge creation by applying all the disciplines using the unity of knowledge. We need a unified conceptual framing and theories linking innovation system with tangible, measurable development, comprehensive outcomes. This is critically important. In our context in Africa, we need to be inclusive. We need to bring in the rehabilitative and restorative justice, many things, our Ubuntu. There's so many values that we have, and then we need to use this digital technology to actually spread it and make everyone know about it, and use it systematically to actually create this, so that everyone actually can apply it and then change their attitude, their standard in life. I think they need to have high standard, not just be driven by attitudes, wrong attitudes. We need to change like that. So change much needed. Both the ontology and epistemology of innovation with development need transformation by rethinking them to address the challenge the world is going through. We have now digital gangsters and cybercrime, social media awash with unregulated explosion of all kinds of morally, emotionally not intelligent information. There's a need for transformative innovation that can contribute to the well-being anchored development of both humans and nature for our Africa. Very important. We have been working on how to apply this transformative innovation development to the African context. I hope you know the book we did. I was the one that started it, on putting Africa first, the making of African innovation systems. It was produced in 2003. That's now many years now, nearly 20 years. It highlighted the critique of, in fact, when we have that 20 years, I hope our Daniel, yeah, I hope we should have celebration of this book, because it's highly referenced, and I think many people all over the world have referenced it. In fact, there's the World Scientist University Ranking 2023. They actually sent me a certificate where where I was quite surprised that to get. I think they didn't send it to many people. To call us a world scientist because of works like I did. I think this book on the making of African innovation system is critically important. It promoted both the national and international organizations. No imitation of national innovation system for Africa. We need to create an African one, Africa contextualized one. No imitation of development economics for Africa needs a contextually anchored new model that synthesizes innovation with an African integrated sustainable development innovation system. That's what we did with this book, and it's been very good. So a new sustainable development innovation system, there's a need to undertake a rethinking and reinvention of innovation development from their current pattern to the transformative new synthesis by taking the challenges Africa faces to discover how the problems will be resolved by creating innovative and developed well-being anchored Africa to serve above all the people and nature. That's what we try to do. Africa continues to face challenge of remaining in the raw material, agriculture, mineral, primary level, global value chain. The world now is in the knowledge, digital, disruptive, exponential technology stage. How can Africa build an integrated network, unified innovation system for sustainable development to undertake and navigate the complexity of the current global value chain? That's very important. All right, it's catching up also and leapfrogging from this economy. So Africa needs to construct an integrated network, unified, sustainable development innovation system, path by coming together rather than by going alone, facing the prisoner's dilemma, being caught within the boundaries of each of the 55 states. A new innovative approach to handle the rich resources and how to create both productions, applying high technology and indigenous digital technology and innovation, and creating consumption by making the African production to consumption value chain is much needed to address now more than at any time, as the global value chain is changing dramatically with the current fourth industrial revolution. Africa cannot remain an economy mainly and largely that exports primary resources, minerals and agriculture, and being losers. If we continue to be like that, we are losers. What do others do to us? They take our minerals, they add value to it, they sell it at a higher price to us. So we export our wealth, we're losers. We buy what others add value to from our resource, again, losers, we lose. In other words, we're losers on both sides. So the unified and networked innovation system is needed to make Africa catch up in the current global value chain. Time to provide a new paradigm of innovation development, which is now much needed to empower, enable, capacity to anchor the well-being of the African people and nature without fail once and for all. So Africa must own its resources, not keep outsourcing with external powers her wealth. That's my concluding remark. But also not to create states in Africa, but real African states, not universities in Africa, but African universities, not industries and businesses in Africa, but African industries and businesses, not NGOs and civil in Africa, but African NGOs and civil, and so on, so on. And I really appreciate you for having this business month for Africa, and I hope practical things are created where really trade in Africa will increase, our currency will be valued with each others and not rely on anglophone lusophone all these things, and really we africanize ourselves, and we really use this digital technology not to attack us, not to hurt us, to create more risks for us, but to create opportunities for us. And if we do like that, then the sky's the limit. Africa has everything. Why should any African be poor, beggar, all right, loser, homeless? No, 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 no. Let's really stop that. Let we all Africans value each other and trust each other and use our Ubuntu value where we say, you are me, I'm you. There's an I in you, there's you and I. If I hurt you, meaning I hurt myself more. So never hurt you. Better hurt myself than hurting you. Some new values like that among Africans must be created. The unity must be done. If that is done, the sky, I mean, I'm sincerely telling you that Africa, with everything we have, what don't we have? With everything we have, we should be able to make it and not only be good for ourselves, but for the rest of the world. I think for humanity. All Africans should be form one African community and one, let's be one people, one nation, African nation we should be. That's my suggestion. Thank you very much.
Uh, well, thank you so much. Thank you so very much, Professor. I'd like, before giving floor to Sister Shannon, I'd like to give you some questions that I think it's important for people of your standard and people of your background to be given. And you are fortunate to be part of the generation that witnessed the post-independent days of Africa. And you actually face the cries of the founding fathers, what they were scared of might happen to us in the future. And then you are here with us today, some of us that are never been a part of that generation. What would you say to say some of the things that made the point of the Nkrumah and the Nyereres, that they said that Africa will be recolonized if we didn't do what we're supposed to be doing? So you think their points have been proven today that an African from South Africa struggles to do a business with an African who lives in Cairo, or a Gambian who lives in Western Africa struggles to do a business with a Kenyan who lives in Nairobi, just because they have to use an external system for them to do business in Africa.
No, very good question you asked me. Um, as you said, our leaders, both Kwame Nkrumah and Mwalimu Nyerere, they both were very. They even when they have disagreements, they agreed on making sure that the agenda of African unity should come. Although they may not have, I mean, Kwame Nkrumah said it's not easy for Africa to decolonize if we keep the states that the colonial powers created. If we continue with those states, which were built on irrationally, for them to promote their divide and rule, everything, all the boundaries were not rational. In other words, they were not done with a way that all of us can actually, because they even divided, the same community has been divided like that. I mean, Benin with Nigeria, wherever you go, there's division everywhere. So because of that, they said it's better when we decolonize, we actually unite. If we unite, then it's be easier to manage all the divisions. In other words, it will be freedom for everyone. So I think that's what this, and he said, let's do it quickly. In other words, when they had the meeting in 1963, he said Africa must unite or perish. He said it, and when there was the groups, Monorovia group, Casablanca group, okay, and when they were saying different things, he was very upset actually. In fact, he left the airport. He went to Bole airport in Ethiopia, and Emperor Haile Selassie and secretary went to the airport and asked him, please, you don't go, because Emperor Haile Selassie said to him, you are my son, he can't go. And he says, okay, I cannot oppose my father, he said, and then he came back. But what we were told was in the entire meeting, he just sat like this and just watched. He couldn't do anything because he didn't accept the idea of actually the Organization of African Unity with all the different states. So there were others who were disagreeing with him. The Monrovia and other groups like that, and then he was not happy with it. And then again, Mwalimu Nyerere is also very interesting. He said Tanzania is a colonial mistake. He said that's what he said. And decolonization means unity of Africa. And one good thing he did was, even within Tanzania, there are about something like 250 groups and tribal whatever groups, different languages. He, Kiswahili was a language. It became the national language of Tanzania, and all of them speak it, and all of them learn it, and there isn't much division among the people. Where if from the decolonization time, the worst thing that happened to Africa is all the coup d'etats, all the civil wars, all the fighting. It hasn't stopped. We still have problems, and we still have
So,
anglophone, francophone.
uh,
So we have serious challenges. You see,
so
so we
if I may ask, Prof, what advice would you have for younger generation on two groups of the younger generations that you're looking at us right now? Some of the
no,
younger generation that are having aspiration to be in the political system, and some of the African youths that are not willing to be in the political system, but they want to be they wish to be part of the private sector. And last time I checked, these are the two groups of people that's supposed to be developing our countries. What general advice would you give to these groups of people?
I think it's an extremely important question you're asking me. The key point is the youth are the change makers and the game changers. If for them to actually be actively engaged, they need to have values. They need to have moral intelligence, emotional intelligence, intellectual intelligence. And they should have integrity, humility, sincerity, honesty. If they have these values, then, and also in Africa, they should really not go with all the divisions that we are now faced with. We have tribal divisions, all right? States, the current states, the number of states that are, each of them consider themselves like nations. They are different states that we have that. Then we also have foreign influences, foreign languages. For example, the French speaking, the English speaking, the Portuguese speak. We have these variations. So what we need is a new approach is necessary on the economic side. Also, as you rightly, more African young people want to go to Europe and America and everywhere than going to each other. In fact, I tried to create once, in 2003, we got money to try to see if we could create inter-African university linkages, inter-African student mobility. All right, this kind of inter-staff mobility too, so that we also teach things like that. Even the Pan-African University that was created is not doing it exactly as we thought it should do. So I think we have a challenge. The only thing is the interaction among Africans must be strong. And on the trade side, on everything, on the economy side, on the education side, on the health side, on every sphere, on the environmental side, on every sphere, on the development side, on the business side, all right, on all every sphere, in the manufacturing, in everything, there should be collaboration. We should also try to create venture startups. When we create this venture for this, even the teaching the students, we need to know how to teach them with problem-based learning, action-based learning, work integrated learning. You see, and this kind of approaches are necessary so that the students can then be together and the mobility should be there. For example, we've created some things like now we have a conference, a series of conferences and academies on the, we call it Africa Leaks, African learning, innovation, and competence building. We tried this, and I was one of the people who was in the founding part. And we're now having one another conference now in Yaoundé. With we're doing it now this month. We're not, all of us are going there. What we're trying to do is what the key thing we're trying to do is get all the young people, and I'm also creating what is called Africana Postgraduate Academy, where I am trying to get also this academy to run across different parts of Africa, so that it can. We've run it about 25 times, 22 times we've run it, and then we are trying to see if we could link the students very, very well, so they can also be entrepreneurs and innovators, venture creators. They start together, but they don't do it individually. They do it collaboratively. In other words, people from Gambia do it with South Africa, South Africa do it with Nigeria, Nigeria do it with Senegal. We need to kind of bring this approach, and even North Africa, Algeria, or so on. We try to connect. If we do it like this, I think we have a great chance to actually make a big difference, where the youth can be change makers and then can really create something new for us. But that's not easy, I'm telling you. Also, we need resources to support them. We have the African Entrepreneurship Award, and I mean, again, Morocco's bank was used to support it. We need the Africa Development, but the problem we have is we have the African Development Bank, but in the African Development Bank, Americans are involved in it, the fund they give. Europeans are involved in it. Is it Africa? You see, it's very, very complicated. The African Union, the same thing. Resources are coming from outside. Why can't we have all these resources? I'm telling you. Why are we relying on these external actors? Because when you rely on their funds, they also have influence on it. Their agenda comes on it. So the agenda you and me are now describing to bring Africa together will not come if other funders are active, and all our actors that are engaged in this funding transaction are also their mindset is, it will not be on the agenda that you and I are thinking to unite Africa. It won't be easy. It's very, very complicated. That's what I noticed. Even on the conflict recently, we have this Ethiopia Tigray conflict. There's a meeting going on here. The United States is there. All other external actors are there as observers. Why is it necessary? Why can't, if the African Union is doing it, why can't the African Union just solve it? We have challenges like that. Our own problems, we should solve ourselves. African solution to African problems. If we do that, then our own trade, our economy, our business, our education, our universities, everything will have an African context, like the Chinese have done with theirs. Whatever you say, over the last 75 years, the Chinese have gone through many perspirations, but they have managed to create a China where they made sure from the beginning they started with how to change the agriculture, the rural areas, the people, there's the standard of the ordinary people, and eventually now they have now abolished absolute poverty. Africa should have abolished absolute poverty a long time ago. Why? Because we have more resources than all of them. Why we should be, any one of us be rich, poor? No, 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 no. This has to change. I think that's my suggestion.
Thank you so very much, Prof. We are grateful, we are humble, and we are honored to have you with us, because we always, when the young are doing something, we didn't see the elders there, it means we're not doing anything. But when we see elders with us, it always gives us a motivation to be understanding that we are on the right track. And we're praying for your success more in life. We are praying for your longevity, and also, as we know, the elders of Pan-African scholarship across the globe, we pray for you, for your protection also. And what I will ask from you is, if you can, the book that you mentioned during the presentation, if you can make the cover available to us so we can be able to share it on the United States of Africa page,
Yes,
because it's a book young Africans, who all of us supposed to be learning from. So if you can make it available to Daniel, that will be very supportive to us.
no,
Yeah. With that,
we
thank you
have
so much, Professor.
many books. I'll send it.
Yes,
Sorry,
we wish to have, and I will send
go
you a
ahead.
message on the chat section. I will take your number from there, inshallah. Then we'll be able to move from there. With that,
Definitely, but
uh, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
no, I really appreciate you and Daniel also, and all of you for the hard work you're doing. And this, in fact, even making sure this kind of program is going on and then more discussions are happening. At least if we, that is excellent. I think you are doing wonderful job and I really appreciate you more. You, the younger generation, must really be active. The more engaged you are, the better. And then the hard, and the faster you fast track the African unity, the better. So that we, the older ones, before we go, we see and then we will be very happy and applaud you for achieving it. So you are the ones, the younger generation, have to be really united to make sure that we achieve it. And I am depending on you, and I really value you, admire you, and like you to make sure you really work very hard, systematically and effectively to achieve the unity of Africa. It has been too delayed. It shouldn't be delayed until 2063. Let's do it faster. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Prof. Asanteni sana bana. Shukran. Thank you so much. Daniel,
Yes.
so that was Prof. And then I hope all of us learned something, one or two things from him. And he dropped lots of knowledge. This is how you understand that people that are having more to give, and with a passion, with honesty behind it. You could see it during his presentation. He was trying to fast track to make sure that he dropped as much as he could. And I am sure that if you watch this live, you need to go back in order to be able to say a whole lots of things from different genres he was talking about. And we only ask for, God to protect him. And next on stage, we are having some of our youth from the African continent who are actually engaged in business. Because when we talk about African business, we want to make sure that you understand this is something not theoretical level, but we're talking about a whole different level of practicality. And with us today, it's one of our comrades from Nigeria, and he does business, indigenous businesses, that he's not taking any complaint of being employed by anybody, but he's taking the initiative of doing what he could to provide a service to him, for his service to his people, to make sure he employ himself and maybe employ other people in the future. And brother Sahih, man, Nigeria, sorry if I didn't pronounce your name very correctly, and which you will be doing for yourself. And going through your biography and then the business profile that you have, I've seen you started business approximately during the pandemic, and then it shows me, how much thinking that you must engage in, not to blame the pandemic or blame anybody for not to give you opportunity, but you creating one for yourself. And the floor is yours, bro. We're glad to have you here with us.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening, Adam.
I'm not able to. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Oh, that's very good. First of all, I must appreciate the leadership of the United States of Africa for their resilience, ambition to put together the ideas and to pursue the ideas of our founding fathers. And this is gradually uh, bringing out some fruits. As you can see, the zeal that is already uh, visible in the life of a young generation that has decided to take the destiny into their hands And I want to appreciate the convener and all the organizers for this opportunity to be here and to share my own experience. But permit me, I may not be able to call every name because the names are also strange to our
Yeah,
terms.
so in short, would you kindly, if you don't mind, to share your business? What do you do with our
Yes,
audiences? What is the type of business that you do, and
yes.
where do you start and where do you want to go?
My business is principally on processing of natural honey. And just like the moderator mentioned, we commence this business in the midst of the pandemic. There were a lot of challenges, restrictions thereabout, and we were able to wade through this, and the business grew from steadily even during those difficult times. And today we have come to a point that we are also proud of our products. And the people who also patronize us are also proud of the product. They are home with it. Is so valuable to them. So basically what we do in my company, which is called Shahime Nigeria Limited, is processing of natural honey. We we buy it from the farmers, and when we get into our factory, we sieve it, we fill it into PEP bottles of different sizes. After this, we cork, we seal, and then we label. And after labeling, we package it into various packs as desired by the customers. Now, somebody may, in the course of the processing, no additive or preservative is used. So the outcome, the product we obtain is pure, it is unadulterated, it is fit for human consumption. It is, I would like us to also know that we recorded a milestone. The regulatory body for food and drugs in Nigeria has visited our factory. They have taken samples, they have done the laboratory analysis, and they have certified our products fit for human consumption. So in Nigeria, we have the government approval. Our product has been approved by the government. Is is a milestone for us. And in all this, we have been using personal resources. There was a time I even applied to government for a loan so that we automate our production process. But we have not heard from them. But we are not waiting for them. We want to push it on and move from manual processing to a point that we can automate our production processes. Now,
Okay, brother. So, if I may ask, how is the public reacting to your production? Because in most cases, you might be having the quality product for the public and a safer one for them. But is the public reacting in your region in Nigeria? If
they,
the
they are they
people
are
actually
happy
seeing the value in what you're doing,
they are happy with the product. We know we have a situation where there is quite a number of adulterated similar products. But for these 3 years that we have been in this business, we have maintained the quality. We have maintained the quality and the customer have attested to this several times and in different fora. So they have rated the quality of the product.
Okay, and also how, like, where, because I know which state, before going further, I would like to know which state do you live in Nigeria for the purpose of our audiences.
Okay, I'm in Niger State, the central region of Nigeria.
Okay, and since you are in Niger State, comrade, where do you want to see yourself, in terms of supplying the market in Nigeria from 5 years from now?
From this moment, our desire is to get this product into most African countries, into Europe, into Asia, yes, and into the Middle East. That is our desire in 5 years.
And what are some of the challenges that you face in terms of doing this process, from getting the material, or getting some of the pots that you need
On
to put this honey in?
the most challenging factor here is funding. Like I said earlier, we have come to this point basically by savings, personal savings. We have not received any grant or any loan from government or from any organization. We could have been far uh, more productive than this, but you are not, when you talk about savings from your money here, is not enough to push on. So, this funding is the major challenge we have. If there's a way we can get a grant, where we can have a low interest loan, uh, our operations will be faster, and we may break into the international market much easily.
Okay, if I may also ask this question to you, what can you say to the young Africans that are saying that I have a business idea that I want to start? However, the funding is my problem. That is why I cannot start.
Yeah. We are a practical example of this kind of a problem. Africa is facing an awkward situation. People have money to 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 buy billions of cars. These same people don't have the money to support a business idea. It's the kind of thing we are facing in Africa. And now, what will a young person who is interested, who is an entrepreneur, do? Just like we have done. If you are working or there are things you are doing and you are earning money, no matter how little it is, you can be saving it, and then you can start a business. We started today. We process uh, up to a ton or more, tons of this honey in a month. But when we started, we were just processing maybe 100 of kg in a month. So uh, the little you have saved and you can start with it. And then with discipline and commitment, it will begin to grow, just like we have done, even without receiving a grant or a loan, with commitment, discipline, financial discipline. This thing can grow from a small scale, from a little, to become a big enterprise. And that is what we are doing. I also advise the young entrepreneur in Africa to do so.
Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful insight. And for people that might be in Nigeria right now, since that's where your products are only available, where can they find your products if they want to reach out to support?
If you want to have our products, I have a WhatsApp number. The company has a WhatsApp number that you can reach me. The number
Okay,
is
give us any Facebook name or any Twitter or any Instagram so they can reach out to you, maybe DM you, they take your numbers from there.
for, for none of this for now, but I have a
Okay,
WhatsApp.
then you can just say your WhatsApp number for the business in public so they can be able, people watching the video can get it from there. Okay, I am just told by Daniel that your number is in the flyer. So anybody who want to reach out to brother to support them as part of our Africa Business Month, you can check the numbers on the flyer, so you'll be able to support them. And brother, the entire idea of this Africa Business Month is, as we're saying, is how do we revolutionize doing business. When what we exactly mean by this is how do we do buying and selling, as they will say, in the form of willing buyer and a willing seller. And this is the idea that we want to stop complaining and blaming one another or blaming other people. We want to take responsibility of stepping forward and providing solutions to the people of the continent, and also to set a stage for African diaspora who might be willing to come back and invest in Africa, because either African diaspora to come and invest or non-Africans will come. And as Brother Usman said, we're supposed to be moving faster than any other civilization, or else we'll be facing something worse than colonialism. And I don't pray that we do that again. And that was all for today. And we thank all the viewers that actually watched or shall be watching this video from Facebook or YouTube or live with us in any of our platforms today. That was all from me, Ibrahim Sise from the Gambia, and also Comrade Sanun. And in our background, that you don't see his face, the person behind all the, the logistics that we've been doing, brother Comrade Daniel from Kenya. So with that, if you're from Northern Africa, we say Assalamu alaikum ma salama. And if from Eastern African part, we tell you Asanteni sana. Until next time. And if you're from Western Africa in the Senegambia region, we tell you Inimbara, or Benin Best. So that was all. Viva Africa, viva the memories of the founding members of the continent. May we live to see the fruits of their labors. If we don't live to see it, may our kids live to see it, where Africans shall be living with dignity, and they shall never bow down to nobody except the Creator God that is above the heavens. That was all from us today. Ubuntu and Aluta continue.